The apartment always smelled like coffee and the faint metallic tang of a new computer. For a long time, that was my entire world. It was a cozy, sterile bubble in the middle of a city that never slept. My days had a rhythm to them, a predictable sequence I had programmed for myself. A run at dawn, the cool air biting at my lungs as I pounded the pavement, a shower, a long day of coding, and then the nights. The nights were where things got interesting. I've always been a creature of habit and a bit of a control freak. My morning runs, the way I could track my pace and distance on an app, it gave me a sense of power. The coding I did for work, building these neat logical systems, was another way to feel in control. But there was a different kind of control I found, a kind that was a little more illicit. It started as a side project, a way to test my skills. I was curious about the hidden corners of the internet, the places not indexed by Google, the deep web. It's not the mythical, dark place a lot of people imagine. It's mostly just disorganized forums and weird marketplaces. But if you know what you're looking for, you can find a lot. What I was looking for was the back doors, the cracks in the code. I became obsessed with finding unprotected security cameras, not just in businesses, but in people's homes. It was a game to me, a challenge. I'd sit there in the quiet of my apartment, my screen a beacon in the dark, and I would find a live feed. I wasn't looking for anything salacious or dramatic. I was just watching the boring, mundane moments of people's lives. I saw it as a sort of sociological experiment. I told myself it was harmless, that it wasn't about the people, but about the data. The raw, unfiltered data of daily life. I'd watch a man make breakfast, a woman read on our couch, a kid playing with a toy. Their routines, their small, predictable habits, I found it all fascinating. It was like I was seeing the source code of human behavior, and it made me feel a quiet sort of power. It was a thrill, a little secret I had, a way of healing smarter than the rest of the world. I kept at it for months. My mornings spent on the road, my nights spent in other people's homes. Digitally. I never saved a single frame. I never took notes. It was a fleeting, in-the-moment thing. But eventually the thrill faded. It was all the same routines, the same predictable patterns. I was getting bored. So I stopped. I shut down the software, closed the browser, and went back to my normal life. I was done with the game. Or so I thought. A few weeks later, I was up late working on a personal project. I was in my zone, my headphones on, the soft hum of the city outside my window. I leaned back in my chair, stretching my neck, and that's when I saw it. The tiny, almost imperceptible green light on my laptop's webcam. It was on. I hadn't turned it on. I hadn't opened a single program that used it. My heart jumped into my throat. I immediately yanked my headphones off and sat perfectly still, my eyes glued to that light. It stayed on for about 10 seconds, and then it went out. I told myself it was a glitch, a driver issue, a rogue process I'd forgotten to close. I'm a programmer, after all. I know how this stuff works. There was a logical explanation. I ran a quick virus scan, and nothing came up. I physically covered the webcam with a small piece of black tape. Problem solved. Or so I thought. The next morning, I woke up to my alarm and the sun streaming through my window. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand to check my running app. As I opened the home screen, I saw a notification from the camera app. It was a picture of me, asleep. The photo was taken from an odd angle, from the edge of my bed, a view I knew was impossible from where my phone usually sat. My stomach dropped. I went to my photo library. There were a half dozen photos, all of me, all taken while I was sleeping. I went through my phone settings, my apps. I even did a factory reset. Nothing. No apps with camera permissions, no unknown files. I was baffled, and for the first time, a little scared. My digital world, the
the one I felt so much control over, was starting to feel foreign, hostile. The privacy I had taken for granted was gone. The feeling of vulnerability was a sharp, physical pain. I had been so convinced of my own cleverness, so sure I was on the outside looking in, and now I was the one under a microscope. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I tell? My family? My colleagues? I couldn't exactly say, hey, someone is turning on my camera, because I used to do the same thing to other people. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. I was on my own. I started to change my routine. I stopped running at the same time every morning. I started taking different routes, going to the gym instead, or running in the evenings. I was looking over my shoulder, constantly. My arrogance was gone, replaced by a cold, persistent dread. The texts started about a week later. They came from a blocked number. The first one was simple. It just said, "You missed your run this morning." It hit me like a physical blow. I had gone to the gym that day, and I had left for the gym an hour later than my usual running time. The message was so casual, so understated, and yet it was a direct reference to a change in my new secret routine. It was a message that said, I know what you're doing, and I know you're trying to hide from me, but it's no use. I deleted the message immediately and blocked the number. But I was already spiraling. My hands were shaking. I wasn't just being watched. They knew my routine. The game I had played was now being played on me. The next message came 2 days later, from a new block number. The new security cameras on your apartment building are a nice touch. Don't worry, I know the blind spots. My blood ran cold. I had, in a desperate attempt to feel safe, convinced my landlord to install a few more cameras around the building. I hadn't told anyone. No one. This person, or people, knew. They were watching me. From where? From what vantage point? I didn't know. I was trapped. I felt like a rat in a maze, and every move I made, every corner I turned, was a part of a design I couldn't see. The messages continued, each one more specific and unnerving than the last. I started to notice things. My blinds were never fully closed when I came home. My coffee maker was on when I knew I had turned it off. I was living in a state of constant, unbearable paranoia. My life had become an open book, and the person reading it was a ghost. I tried to use my programming skills to track them, to find their IP address, to find anything, but they were a step ahead of me, always. They used layers of encryption, dead-end proxies, and anonymous servers. They were better at the game than I was. The paranoia began to consume my life. I stopped going out, except for work and essentials. The running, once my escape, became another source of fear. Every jog felt like a performance for an unseen audience. I started imagining faces in car windows and shadows in alleyways. My sleep was a fragmented mess of dreams where I was a character in a live feed, my every move scrutinized. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, reaching for my phone to check for new photos, new messages. The relief of finding none was always fleeting, replaced by the certainty that the absence of a message was just a new, more terrifying kind of game. They were letting me think I was free, giving me a false sense of security before striking again. I spent my evenings sitting in the dark, watching my webcam, my phone, every device with a camera or microphone. I was a digital sentry, guarding an empty fort. My friends called, and I'd make up excuses. I'm working on a big project. I'm just really busy.
But the truth was, I was too ashamed, too terrified to admit what was happening. I was a programmer, a digital expert, and I was being outsmarted and outmaneuvered by an invisible enemy. The one thing I was good at, the one thing that gave me a sense of purpose and control, was now the source of my greatest fear. I decided I had to do something drastic. I went on a complete digital detox. I sold all my devices, bought a burner phone with a new number, and moved to a new city 1,000 miles away. I didn't tell a single soul where I was going. I chose a small, quiet town, a place with a slow pace of life, and a weak internet signal. I thought I had finally escaped. For the first few months, I was the most relaxed I'd been in years. The morning runs were just runs again, a way to clear my head. The quiet of the night was just that, quiet. But just a few days ago, I was at the local diner, a place I go every morning. I was sitting at the counter, a cup of coffee in my hand, and my new burner phone buzzed. It was a text from a blocked number. My blood went cold. I slowly picked it up, my hands shaking. I told myself it was just a coincidence, a wrong number. I opened the message, and a single sentence appeared on the screen. Enjoying the local coffee? It's much better than that instant stuff you used to drink. My heart stopped. It was a detail so specific, so mundane, that only someone who had been watching me for a long, long time could have known it. The instant coffee I used to drink, the one I kept in a jar next to my sink. I looked up from my phone, my eyes darting around the diner, searching every face. I didn't see anyone looking at me, anyone with a phone in their hand. I was alone, but I knew I wasn't. The game wasn't over. It had never ended. I've since moved again. I'm in a new city now, a new apartment. I've covered every camera, every lens, every microphone I own. I bought new phones, new laptops, new everything. I've changed my name on my social media accounts, and I've deleted everything I can. I'm starting to feel safe again. My morning runs are back, but every now and then, when I'm out on the road, I can't help but look at the security cameras on the houses I pass. I can't help but wonder if the little red light on the face of them is on. And if it's on, what is the person on the other side of the screen seeing? And I can't help but wonder if the game I used to play, the game I thought I had left behind, will ever truly be over. I wonder if they're out there, just waiting for me to slip, for my guard to drop, so they can send me one last text. It was a dark, quiet night when curiosity and the urge to explore the unknown pushed me into the dark web. I installed a specialized browser that promised to protect my identity. With each click, the adrenaline surged. I found myself surrounded by clandestine forums and markets, pages with strange names and cryptic descriptions. Every link looked like a dead end that could open to something trivial or fatal. Trying to fit in, I started sharing personal information, first my own, then of friends and relatives, thinking it was harmless. I even joined a group that paid small bounties for referrals. My wallet pinged with tiny deposits, and the quick-hit rewards dulled my judgment. It felt like a game. Then, at a family dinner, my mom mentioned a cousin who'd become the target of blackmail. Someone had found compromising photos and was threatening her. The news hit me like a truck. Back home, I scrolled through my messages, hands shaking, replaying what I'd shared. Guilt flooded in. A few days later, an anonymous text arrived. "We know what you did." More messages followed, each more menacing than the last. "We'll publish your secrets. Your friends and family won't forget." My cousin fled to another country, hoping distance would protect her. But the anxiety and depression consumed her. She took her own life. I tried to reach the people behind the threats, begging, demanding anything,
but there was only silence. I realized I had crossed a line, endangering others for a handful of digital coins and the empty feeling of being in on it. I'm sharing this publicly now because people need to hear it. Recklessness online can be devastating, not just for you, but for the people you love. The line between sharing and endangering someone is thinner than it looks. Don't let the hunt for validation or quick money push you into choices you can never take back. My name is Nico. I deliver pizzas at night and take classes in the morning. It is not glamorous. It is boxes stacked high, the smell of sauce in your clothes, and a scooter that rattles when the light turns red. My boss says I'm quick because I do not talk much. He is right. When the clock hits closing, I lock up, count the drawer, and go home to a studio that hums with the neighbor's television through the wall. On a wet Friday, a ticket printed with a customer note that did not read like a customer. No bell, service entrance, mention my name to the guard, pay at the door, generous tip. The address was in a private development I had only seen from the road, where the gatehouse sits like a small museum and the hedges are cut so straight you could line up a ruler. I boxed 2 pies, added the little red peppers because the note asked, and headed out. The rain made a silver sheet in my headlight. I kept thinking about the words, generous tip. I do not fold hope into my pockets, but the week had been thin. At the gatehouse, the guard leaned out as if we were old friends. He did not check a list. He did not ask for a unit. He simply said, "Second left, last house on Larkspur Bend, use the side path by the garage," and pressed the button that made the great metal ribs of the barrier swing out of the way. Inside, the streets were empty in that rich people way that is not quiet so much as curated. Every house was a magazine cover. The one at the end of Larkspur had glass where most houses put walls. From the road you could see the stairs, the island in the kitchen, and a painting that tried to be minimalist and landed on expensive. The side path cut along a wall of frosted panes toward a low door with a keypad. The door was propped open with a clean river rock, like a decorator had chosen even the wedge. The room inside was not a mudroom or a pantry. It was a square, white space with a long counter like a laboratory bench. The air smelled like lemons and a cold machine. A tablet sat on the counter, screen still glowing. I am not the kind of person who reads other people's screens. I set the pizzas down and reached for the receipt. That was when I saw my name at the top of the tablet. Not the name on my badge, the full one, first and last, with the second surname my grandmother uses when she wants me to pay attention. Below it, the logo of our shop, our shift schedule, and a photo of me in my red cap, taken from an angle I did not recognize. The browser bar showed an address that ended with a word I knew belonged to hidden places, the kind that do not show up in search engines. The page looked like a dashboard. Boxes, lists, a map. In one corner, a small camera feed of the gate I had just passed through, a timestamp in the corner. I watched myself ride up, talk to the guard, and disappear, as if I were a character in someone else's security reel. The tablet chimed. A message appeared. Leave the pies, 2 extra in cash under the dish towel. Thank you, Nico. The dish towel was folded with hotel precision. Beneath it, as promised, money tucked so flat it looked ironed. I stood there with the bills in my hand, not sure if I was being paid or being bought. The hair on my arms tried to stand despite the damp. I did not say a word. I signed the receipt with the practiced scribble of a person who wants to leave. I stepped back into the rain. When I looked up at the floor-to-ceiling glass, something shifted in the reflection, like a person moving in a room you cannot see. Maybe it was only me, doubled in the night. Maybe it was not. Back on the scooter, I told myself stories that fit into the safe world. Maybe the owner runs a neighborhood watch thing. Maybe the guard sends him deliveries on camera. Maybe my boss uploaded that roster somewhere public. Maybe I was very, very tired. At the shop, my boss whistled at the tip and told me to take another in the same direction. Different street, same note. No bell, service entrance, mention my name to the guard. The second house had no tablet on the counter. It had a cardboard box with a label that used a warehouse return address and a name that sounded like a brand. The box was sealed with perfect tape. The counter had a place set out for it, outlined faintly in pencil. I put the pizzas where the note said, placed the box in the faint outline, and left. This time my phone buzzed before I reached the scooter. The message came from a number that did not look like a number. "Thank you, Nico." Did the ride take longer because of the rain or the guard's chatter? There was a smiley face with no eyes. I pocketed the phone and rode. The orders kept coming, not every night and never the same house twice in a row, but often enough that my boss started to ask if I wanted to take that zone as mine. "They tipped like they mean it," he said. "The guard knows you. It is good for the schedule." I do not scare easily, but patterns scare me when they are too neat. On a slow afternoon, I searched my own name. The first pages were harmless. A teammate had tagged me in a photo from a futsal match. An old profile with a wrong address floated to the top. Then, buried deeper, a forum scraped by an aggregator that lets the public read without signing in. The thread title mentioned delivery runners. The first post was a chart with columns I did not understand. The second one had a photo taken at night at the gate, my scooter entering, the time and date roughly right. A line below it read, "Runner, red cap, reliable." I remember that my hand floated over the mouse for a long time before I closed the tab. The room seemed too loud, the way it does after a concert when your ears buzz. After that, I carried a disposable notepad in my jacket and wrote down little things, because I did not trust the way memory flattens danger into maybe it was not that bad. The guard stopped checking any lists. The notes got shorter. The deliveries picked up on nights when the rain made the road shine. On one, a small drone hovered over the gate as I arrived, then drifted away as if bored. At another, I saw the same cardboard box on a different counter, same faint pencil rectangle, same private smiley in my phone. What was in the boxes? I would love to have the clean answer you want right now, the kind that ties a knot and says, "Here is the bad thing." I never opened one. I am not brave in that way. I am not reckless in that way either. I had the feeling that whatever was inside did not belong to me in any sense of the word, and that if I crossed from delivery to curiosity, the world would tilt and not tilt back. The thing about gated communities is that you think they keep danger out. Sometimes they keep the neighbors out and let other kinds of people in. The kind who like order because it is a cover. The kind who can afford to rent a house for a week here and a week there, make a path with a pencil, and then vanish like a stagehand. 2 weeks after the first night, the order came with a time request so precise no one outside a logistics department would write it. I tried to trade it away. My boss said if I did not want the tip, someone else would take it. I took it. I told myself one more and then I would ask not to do that zone again. The house on that slip sat deeper in the development, set back from a curve that hid it from the road. The side path was pavers set into gravel. The door was not propped open. It was unlocked. I stepped in, the way you step into a doctor's office, not into a home. There was no tablet this time. There was a refrigerator hum and a faint static that reminded me of televisions when you could still dial them past the channels. On the counter sat a laptop. The screen did not sleep. The window open looked like a map of dots, addresses I did not recognize, each with a timestamp, each with a small green mark beside a word that meant completed. In the bottom corner, a chat window scrolled with short lines from different names. The top of the browser showed that address ending in that word. I looked up and saw myself doubled in the glass again, only this time there was a second shape beside the reflection of me. I did not turn.
I said the lines a delivery driver learns by heart. 2 pies, extra peppers, napkins in the bag. Behind me, a voice that made ordinary words sound like instructions said, "Leave them on the counter, Nico." Then, a small pause. "Thank you for being on time." I set the boxes down. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The voice said, "You can go." The buzzing kept going as I walked to the door, as I stepped out into the gravel, as I started the scooter. I did not look at the phone until I was moving. The message said, "Tap the link to accept your tip." The link led to a page with that same hidden place ending, a clean page with my name and a button that said, "Accept." I closed it and kept writing, because even my bad ideas do not get that bad. At the shop, I told my boss I did not want that zone anymore. He shrugged. His eyes slid to the wall where we pinned the night's cash log. He said it was my loss. I said I would make it up on volume.
That might have been the end if the world were fair, but when you step onto a track that looks like a path, it is hard to jump off when it is actually a belt that moves under you. The next night, I had 4 orders in other parts of town. The 5th ticket printed with a note that used my full name again, and a polite line about the guard. The address was another inside the gates. I brought the pies to my boss and said he would need someone else. He stared at me, confused, as if I were turning down a raise. On my way home, a number that did not look like a number called. I let it go. It called again. I let it go again. A text followed. "They will keep sending you, Nico. Even if you refuse, someone with less to lose will go. It is better if it is you. We like you. You are careful." I did not sleep. My studio felt like a place you walk through during an open house, with fruit on the counter that is not real. Before dawn, I put on my jacket and went to the shop with coffee as a peace offering. My boss was already there, tying his apron. He looked at the coffee like it might bite him. He said someone had called to ask about me, very politely, and that it sounded like I had landed a side gig. I told him there was no side gig. He said he did not want trouble. He said he liked my speed, but he liked the shop's reputation more. I said I understood. I told him I would find something else. It took the rest of the day to get an appointment with anyone who knew how to file a report that involved phones and words like hidden. The person I finally saw at the precinct had kind eyes and a tired voice. She asked me to tell the story without jumping to the part where I thought I knew what was happening. She did not laugh when I said the word gated. She did not sigh when I said hidden places on the internet. She said this is a kind of old thing in a new wrapper. People who use regular workers to move small things they do not want to be seen moving, then test the worker to see if fear or money makes them useful again. She said the safest thing was to stop, document, and not answer the messages at all. I asked about the tablet with my schedule and the map with dots. She said those are not a mystery when people buy access to cameras and scrape rosters and collect what is already lying around in public. She told me to shut everything down for a while. Phones, accounts, even the food delivery apps I use on my days off. If the messages continued, she said, we could try a controlled delivery with plain clothes nearby, but she could not promise the doorknob would turn at the right time. She said most of the time it fizzles when you stop being easy. Easy is a hard word to hear about yourself. I changed my number. I left my old phone on a shelf and bought a cheap one for calls and nothing else. I slept at my cousin's place on a couch that collapsed into the middle like a smile. The rain stopped. The air went clear in that way that makes the city look like a photograph again. The messages did not stop. They came to the old number until the phone died. Then one came to the new phone, by name, with that empty smiley. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I went back to the precinct. The same officer read the message and then looked at my face like a doctor deciding to admit a patient. She said we could try it. One delivery, in daylight, to a place they chose, with me staying in the car, with other people nearby that I would not see. If nothing happened, we would file it under attempted coercion with digital means, which is a long name for
leave him alone. It did not happen. The order never came, the number did not call, the rain came back and made a curtain between weeks. Once passing the gates on my way to a new job at a cafe on the other side of the town, I saw the drone again, or one like it, tilting lazily over the guardhouse as if bored by weather. I do not deliver pizzas anymore. I miss the hum of the scooter sometimes, the way the city rearranges itself at night into routes and landmarks that only drivers know. I keep the box bag folded in the back of the closet like a retired jersey. When I tell this story to people who ask about the worst house I ever delivered to, I leave out the part about the link on the tip page, the way my full name looked on that tablet, the faint pencil rectangle on the counter where a box should go. I am not sure which part would make them believe me more.
What I do say is this: not every horror needs a dungeon. Sometimes it rents a modern kitchen with lemon cleaner and a glass wall that shows you not quite enough. Sometimes it smiles with good tips and perfect instructions. Sometimes it learns your name and decides that is a key. I did not expose a network. I did not open a box and find something the news could film. I did not become a hero in a thread where people thank strangers for doing brave things. I did a small thing that mattered, which was to stop before I became a door. I told someone whose job it is to keep doors from being used like that. It does not make a clean ending. It does make a kind of peace. On some nights, I still turn off the lights in my studio and look out at the street and think about the guard and the gate and the drone that watched me arrive. I wonder if someone else rides that route now, if the pencil marks on the counters have been wiped away, or if a new kitchen has them already in place. I wonder how long a smile can be empty and still look like a tip. If you want a lesson, it is not complicated. Curiosity feeds you on slow nights, but it will not protect you when someone decides you are useful. Pay attention to stop signs that do not look like signs. When something praises your carefulness, in the same breath it asks you to do a favor, hear the part you want to ignore. And if a door in a nice house stands open to a blank room with a clean counter and a humming refrigerator and a screen that knows your full name, remember that clean is not the same as safe. I keep a paper map now. It folds badly and tears at the corners, but it is mine. I like the sound it makes when it opens, like a small tent in the rain. It tells me where I am without telling anyone else. I take the long way around the gated streets. I buy my own peppers and add them at home. And when my phone lights up with a number that does not look like a number, I let it ring and ring until it gives up and goes back to being just a rectangle of glass in a quiet room. It was an ordinary day. My older sister hadn't come home from school yet. I was 15 and loved teasing her, so I slipped into her room. Bright, cluttered, very her. Curiosity pulled me to her computer. She'd left a tab open on a site that promised rewards through what looked like a game. A pop-up appeared, a spinning roulette with cheery graphics, like any gambling app. But as it spun, a deep unease crept in. The wheel clacked to a stop, and the screen filled with people's profiles. Faces, basic info, a number attached to each. Then the logic clicked. If the roulette landed on a number, that person would be killed in real life. Winners received instant payouts to their digital wallets. Images flashed, people collapsing, distant gunshots, floors smeared with blood. Light effects pulsed while a triumphant chime announced a win. My hands shook on the mouse. I tried to back out, but some awful magnetism drew me to click again. I lost count of how many times the wheel spun. The initial thrill curdled into nausea. The front door opened. Panic. My sister's voice came down the hall. She caught me at her computer and scolded me, but the damage was done. The images were carved into my mind. In my room, the questions wouldn't stop. Were those payouts real? Did she know what this was? The site called itself entertainment, but every part of me knew better. Sometimes the computer feels like it's calling me back, promising answers. I stare at the blank screen and hear the roulette's click. See the quick flash of a face I'll never forget. I don't know if I'll ever open that door again, but the questions and the fear that someone really died when the wheel stopped don't leave me alone. I was in my senior year of high school, and let's be honest, I wasn't the popular kid. My friends and I were the weird ones, alienated, talking about things most people didn't get. They were the ones who told me about the deep web, that corner of the internet where you can be invisible and do whatever you want, as they put it. That obviously intrigued me. They only used it to buy stuff you can't get in regular markets: drugs, stolen collectibles, pirated software, shows, and movies. I wanted more. I started researching and found a ton of disturbing accounts of the things hidden down there. Strange sites, extreme fetishes, organ trafficking, even murder for hire. I didn't intend to take part in anything like that, but the idea of peeking into an invisible underworld thrilled me. My routine felt dead. Same wake up, boring classes, same people, home, video games, homework, sleep, repeat. I wanted to see what lay beyond the monotony. After many warnings about hackers and horror stories, I finally decided to dive into that abyss. I'd learned the basics, so getting in was easy. I expected chills and nightmares, but all I found at first were drug markets and conspiracy pages. Neither interested me. Still, the rumors kept me searching. Eventually, I landed on a site with no name, just a black screen. I thought the link was dead until a chat box appeared. "Congratulations," wrote someone calling themselves the administrator. "You've found the worst place on the net." Confused more than afraid, I typed, "Great, what's so special about it?" No reply. My mind spun through worst-case scenarios, but I needed to know. I typed again, nervous, insistent. The chat snapped shut and a new page loaded. A black and white video appeared. A small room. A single wooden chair. On the side, a chat showed 5 other viewers waiting for the show. For a moment, a door opened. A man stumbled in, blindfolded, wearing only black briefs. Behind him, a woman in black entered, face hidden by a mask. The tension was suffocating. My adrenaline spiked. I couldn't look away. The woman produced a knife and sliced the blindfold off, shoving him into the chair. He didn't resist. He looked drugged and barely responsive. My conscience screamed to call someone, anyone, but I sat there, paralyzed. She stepped close to the camera, then set the blade against the man's throat. In the chat, someone typed, "Cut off a finger." My stomach flipped. The masked woman nodded, took his hand, and with a single practiced motion, severed a finger. Blood ran from the stump. The man groaned, but couldn't fight back. I hovered my cursor over the X. I couldn't handle it. Yet some awful part of me was still curious. How far would this go? The chat erupted with suggestions for more. She took her time. More fingers followed. Then wrists. Then forearms. He remained alive, semi-conscious, unable to defend himself. The comments were euphoric. Revulsion and panic should have driven me away, but something darker kept me there. I typed, "Finish him." She looked at the camera, almost smiling, and drew the blade across his throat. He went still. The chat celebrated, praising the performer and planning the next event. I was hypnotized, and I wrote down the date of the next show. In college now, I'm deeper than ever. I've seen things that would make most of you tremble. The routine I once hated is gone. In its place is a constant thrum of danger that makes me feel alive. Where most people see fear, I see excitement, and I never get enough.
This is real, and it's one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Take my advice. Stay away from the deep web and the dark web. Both are cruel. During my first semester at university, I broke up with my first girlfriend. We'd been together since high school, 6 years, and then she moved to another state. I fell apart. Classes, home, homework, then locking myself in my room to cry. Eventually the fog lifted, but some days the grief slammed back. One of those days, I ended up on Reddit. A post about the deep web grabbed me. Claims of drug markets, hitmen, human trafficking, secret documents. I wasn't interested in illegal buys or extreme content. I just wanted to see what was out there, to stop thinking about Kayla for 5 minutes. Most people said you needed a special browser called Tor. I'm a bit of a geek, so after a few clicks, I had it installed. I found the hidden wiki, state secrets, conspiracies. None of it seemed truly scary. Categories branched into drugs, adult content, and more. Curiosity pulled me further. I stumbled into forums discussing torture and other criminal material. That's when reality hit. Maybe those posts weren't exaggerating. I followed a list of odd .onion links. One loaded slowly, then revealed a red hyperlink and a grinning face. Alarms rang in my head. I clicked anyway. What followed was a dark parade, photos and videos of people being abused and murdered. Some content was clearly illegal and exploitative. I'm not easily shaken, but this crossed every line. Then I noticed a link for a live stream. That was it. I closed the site and wiped Tor from my computer. People online argue that most of those stories are myths. I know what I saw. If you're tempted to explore, don't. Some doors once opened, don't close again.
People argue about the Mariana's Web, the deepest layer of the deep web. Many say it's a myth. I know it's real, because I used to be a hacker down there. I could hit streetlights, bank accounts, even government records. It was adrenaline and stupid. Summer 2015, after days of prep, I reached a gateway I won't describe, too technical and irresponsible to share. Past the usual drug and stolen card sites, a message pinged the top right of my screen. "Hello, new user. You have an invitation." I clicked. A blank page with a single link. Looked like a video. I felt untouchable behind my hardened setup, so I clicked. Static. A high, needling tone. Blurry footage of what looked like an interrogation room. A door opened, and a man in a terrifying mask sat down facing the camera. "I'm Alpha," he said. "I've killed many people, many interesting ways." He described how he chose victims, how he never got caught. My heart pounded. Then he brought out a folder. Photos of victims, scenes of brutality. He boasted that he preferred long, painful deaths. Angry, reckless, I typed in the comments, "You're sick." Seconds later, my screen went black. A chat window popped up. Alpha. "That was idiotic." Me. "Who are you?" Alpha. "Alpha. I threatened to take the video to the police." "Okay, then I'll have to kill you." I rolled my eyes until he posted my full home address, then my parents' names, friends, even teachers. "See you later," he wrote. My computer shut itself off and wouldn't boot. I told no one. Days passed. I thought I was in the clear until my mom mentioned a strange man came by asking for me. She turned him away. He tried to talk his way in. She refused. To this day, no one else has shown up. Maybe he convinced himself it wasn't my house. Maybe he lost interest. Or maybe I got lucky.
My name's Jaime.
I work for a company that takes down malicious websites. I can't say which one. A few years ago, I stumbled onto what people call red rooms, specifically 5 that were authentic. You won't find them by searching. Most links are fakes or malware. The real ones require introductions and trust from moderators. I befriended one by chance. The system worked like tiers. Pay in Bitcoin and behave in room 1, maybe you get invited to room 2, and so on. I entered the first room, black screen, an access code prompt. I entered 4 digits and a dash. I was in. A grid of black video tiles appeared with chilling titles. Watch Me Terrorize Maya, Tiffany Gets Scared, and more. I clicked one. A phone camera view from behind a door inside a house. I could see a leather sofa and bookshelves. The camera holder whispered in a language I didn't understand. The doorknob turned. A young woman in green scrubs, maybe 20, stepped in. A voice barked, "Don't move." She froze. A man in black with a balaclava appeared behind her, raised a hammer, and struck. She fell. The white carpet blossomed red. Off-screen, someone yelled something that sounded like "Don," and both cameras cut out. I wanted to stop. Instead, I clicked Tiffany Gets Scared. Daylight in a park. A woman with brown and blue hair jogged along a quiet path. A man in a car with a cracked windshield filmed her, chuckling. I wanted to scream at her to run. The screen went dark. When it came back, it was grainy green, night vision. The same woman was bound and gagged against a tree, crying. The man from before, a heavy, hair-armed figure, brushed her hair while the cameraman told him to calm down. They hauled her from a car trunk. He clumsily banged her head with the lid. My mind begged for it to be a prank. It wasn't. They tied her wrist to a car grill. The engine revved. The video cut. A text overlay appeared. "If you enjoy my content, like and subscribe." It was so grotesquely out of place that I sat there in shock. I exited and never went back. Not long ago, I decided to use my computer skills to run a small dark web forum, mostly for sharing uncensored information. At first, I was extremely paranoid about being hacked and having my privacy blown, so I researched everything I could to harden the server. I didn't have money for a VPN or paid hosting, so I used my old laptop. After setting it up and doing everything I thought would make it attack-proof, I put the site online. For a couple of months, things were great. Donations came in as the user base grew. About 5 months in, the forum had grown so much I built a new PC just to host it and migrated everything. The move looked perfect, until one day I came home and noticed the PC had frozen. I shrugged it off as a software glitch, rebooted, and something was clearly wrong. It powered on, beeped a few times, and wouldn't post. After hours of troubleshooting, I found the RAM module was corrupted. It was still under warranty, so the shop replaced it. I got the forum back up within a few hours. Everything looked fine again. Months later, maybe a year and a half after launch, things got really strange. One Friday after work, I came home on a beautiful summer day to find a message waiting. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. It listed my name, address, bank details, passwords, private emails, private messages, practically everything from every device I owned. I panicked, unplugged the PC, and shut off my internet. But whoever this was had already done his homework. A couple of hours later, I got a text, "I know everything about you." It was sent through some untraceable SMS service. Then my phone rang. "Don't talk, just listen," a man said. "I know everything there is to know about you. All I want is 2 Bitcoins. If things escalate, I'll text the wallet details." The call ended as fast as it began. I checked the donation wallet on my laptop. There was just enough to pay him. I sent the BTC, hoping that would end it. My phone rang again. "Thanks for complying," the voice said. "Unfortunately, Someone I know really appreciates you." He hung up. I tried calling the number back, but got an automated message. The number was unrecognized. Hours crawled by. I told myself maybe that last line was just him messing with me. I went to bed after a long day. Around 2 a.m., pounding on my front door jolted me awake. I jumped up, flipped on every light, grabbed a kitchen knife, and crept to a window. A figure stood near a car. When they saw me, they got in and drove off. I ran to the door, hoping to catch a license plate, but they had already turned the corner. On the welcome mat was an envelope. I locked the door, closed the curtains, sat in the kitchen, and stared at the envelope for 30 minutes, trying to work up the nerve. They really came to my house, I thought. Finally, I opened it. Photographs spilled onto the counter. Pictures of me sleeping.
But not taken in my house. They were taken in my friend Franco's house. I panicked all over again. Franco and I decided we had to do something, maybe set a trap. We brainstormed, cameras, lures, whatever. We settled on staying up all night and locking the intruder in the bedroom. We stuffed the bed with pillows, set up cameras, even barricaded the windows. We hid in the room next door with the door cracked to watch the hallway. After a few hours, we heard the front door lock rattle. Time to act. As soon as the intruder entered the bedroom, we rushed out, slammed the door, and jammed it shut with a chair and a metal bar. There was only one way out now: smash the door. We could see the silhouette moving silently around the room. It was unnerving. We called the police and kept eyes on the door. They arrived fast. An ambulance showed up too, just in case. Officers secured the house, and Franco and I were taken to the station to give statements. I sat in an interview room for what felt like hours while they worked. A detective finally came in, sat across from me, opened a folder, and spread photos on the table. "Do you know her?" he asked. I didn't. "This is the person who's been stalking you," he said. They'd been to her place and found a shrine with photos of me everywhere. Restaurants, the gym, shopping. She'd sent the messages and made the calls. They also found a diary with plans for me. She wanted me to be her husband. The worst part? She had planned to drug and kidnap me and had even built a kind of locking bed so I couldn't escape. The detective said I was lucky to be alive. I haven't gone back to the dark web since.
This happened in 2021, though parts of it still wake me up like it's tonight. I was 24, finishing a community college program and working closing shifts at a coffee shop in a half-empty strip mall. My roommate, Matteo, delivered groceries to get by. Most nights we'd split a frozen pizza, play a co-op game, and pass out on mismatched couches. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, and after the pandemic years, quiet felt like a luxury. The first message arrived on a Thursday, just after midnight, from a throwaway Discord account with a handle I recognized from a forum I'd used back in high school. "Hey Alex, nice place on Linden Street. Corner unit, right?" I stared at it too long, telling myself it was a lucky guess. Then a second line appeared with our actual unit number and the color of Matteo's Honda. The profile had a single image, a QR code, and the words CXL token. It meant nothing to me. I blocked the account and turned my phone face down, like that could put the snake back in its hole. 2 days later, our doorbell rang 6 times in an hour. Pizza, then a ride share, then flowers I hadn't ordered. The delivery drivers all had my name, our address, and the same burner phone number as the contact. I tipped who I could and apologized. When I went back upstairs, Matteo was scrolling on his phone, pale. "Dude," he said, "you see this?" He turned the screen. My full name, our address, my sister's school, and a stitched-together timeline of my posts from years of using the same dumb handle. The page wasn't on the normal web. A friend of his had sent an onion link and a mirror that lived in a place people like to pretend isn't real until it breathes on them. At the top of the page was a post titled "SWAT Pack, Pay to Cancel." Under it, a paragraph that felt like ice water down my back. "If you've been listed here, congratulations. You've been enrolled in our service. To cancel, purchase a CXL token. To ignore, enjoy the show." I didn't sleep that night. At sunrise, I called the non-emergency police line and tried to explain. Someone might SWAT us, call in a fate hostage situation to send a tactical team to our door. The desk sergeant didn't laugh. He took down our names and added a swatting caution to our address. "Keep your hands visible if anything happens. Don't run toward officers. Speak slowly." It was the most surreal advice I had ever been given. For a week, nothing. I allowed myself to hope. I muted notifications, uninstalled old apps, and wiped every trace of the handle I could find. I told my sister to lock her accounts and text me if anyone weird contacted her. I told my parents nothing. Why scare them for a shadow? The call came on a Tuesday. 1:17 a.m. I know the time because I was wide awake, scrolling, trying to outrun the thought that I had made some tiny mistake years ago that I couldn't remember and couldn't fix. Outside, tires hissed to a stop. Voices rippled, low and urgent. Mateo was snoring. I swung my legs off the couch and the world detonated. Bangs like car crashes, a chorus of men screaming commands at a door I realized was our door. "Police, open the door. Hands where we can see them. Do it now." "Don't move," I said to a half-sleeping Mateo, and put my hands up as we were trained by articles and tweets. I stepped into the hall, heart hammering, and called, "We're coming out. It's a prank. It's a swatting." "Door, now," a voice boomed. I twisted the lock, eased it open, and stared into a tangle of black helmets and rifles. A red dot wandered across my chest like a lazy fly. "Hands!" one of them shouted, and the dot froze over my sternum. We did everything slow. We went to our knees. We answered the questions: names, birthdays, who else was inside, any weapons, like a catechism we'd crammed for an hour ago. They swept the apartment, and one by one the officers' shoulders dropped. The last one out holstered his weapon with an expression I didn't know how to read. Embarrassment? Annoyance? Relief? Someone called 911, said you'd shot your roommate and were holding 2 kids at knife point. He gave your name, he spoofed your number, he played an audio clip that sounded like you screaming. He looked past me. At the TV, the pizza box, the rented life. "We're sorry." They left a pamphlet on our coffee table that might as well have been titled "How to Keep Your Heart Rate Under 180" and rolled back into the night. I locked the door and slid down it. Mateo sat next to me in the hall, backs to the wood like kids hiding from a storm. "What the hell was that?" he asked no one. I didn't have a good answer. In the morning, the SWAT Pack page updated. A new post appeared, a blurred photo of me kneeling with my hands up. The caption read, "Trial run complete. Next time, bring friends." That was the first time I thought about paying. Not because I believed them. Every security blog will tell you never to pay blackmail, but because my body wanted the shaking to stop. I typed a draft email to the detective whose card I had been given and didn't send it. I typed "how to buy crypto" into a search bar and didn't press enter. Instead, I went to work, and 4 hours into my shift, my manager pulled me into the office to ask why 2 men had stood in the lobby filming the register for 20 minutes when I was on it. "Do you owe somebody money?" she asked carefully. "I think I owe them fear," I said, and heard how crazy it sounded. That night, the messages changed. The anonymous account with the QR code sent a short video. My sister walking across her campus. High sun, long shadow. She was laughing at something off camera. The text under it made my hands go cold. CXL token price goes up every day you ignore. Next tier includes family. I forwarded the video to the detective and finally hit send. He called within 5 minutes. Pull your sister off campus. We're looping in campus police. Tell her this is real. He sounded tired in a specific way, like someone who has said the same thing to too many people in too many kitchens. For the next 2 weeks, cops called, IT friends called, old online friends surfaced like ghosts. Hey man, noticed you deleted your account. Everything good? The page updated in petty little ways, photos, captions, countdowns. Someone posted a clip of a voice that sounded exactly like mine saying things I have never said. Synthetic. Built out of podcast appearances in a video of me giving a class presentation that I had posted years ago for fun. The thread underneath devolved into jokes about voice pack add-ons. If the dark web has a sense of humor, it's the kind that laughs while it holds your head under. On day 15, the detective called me to come in. Their cyber unit had been liaising with other departments and a federal task force. We think this is part of a ring. They're selling cancellations as a service. They rotate sites and wallets, but patterns leak. Do not pay them. We might be able to make a case. How long? I asked. He didn't promise anything. Back at home, I taped over our camera LEDs, even though I knew that didn't actually do anything against what had already happened. I wedged a broken chair under the front door at night. Sleep was like fishing in a black lake. Sometimes you pulled up rest, sometimes more dark. On a Sunday morning, a new message came with a link to a live stream. I didn't click, but the preview was enough. A jittery phone camera panning across the front of my parents' house. The caption, "Free preview. Next tier includes firefighters." I called my father and tried to hold my voice steady while I told him to take the battery out of the smoke detectors nearest the kitchen and keep the oven off. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Okay, son," the way he did when I was little and afraid of thunderstorms. The next day, the detective called again, sounding almost excited. "We got something," he said. "A hosting provider flagged a pattern. We think we've found one of their mirrors. The user slipped up, reused a handle from a gaming server. There's a warrant in motion." I didn't let myself feel it yet. I had learned the tower could always tilt. That night, a car idled on Linden Street for 20 minutes. When I finally stepped onto the balcony with my phone raised, it pulled away slowly enough that I could see a kid in the passenger seat, 16 maybe, holding up his phone to film me. He flicked me a tiny, lazy salute, like this was a prank war. I slept for 2 hours, woke to a thunder of knocks, and went to the door with my hands up before I realized it wasn't tactical pounding, it was ordinary impatient. I opened it to 2 detectives in plain clothes and a third man with a federal badge I'd only ever seen in shows. The Fed did the talking. "We executed a search this morning," he said, "in Ohio. A 17-year-old and a 19-year-old were running part of the site you'd been targeted on. We've identified a third operator overseas. We seized servers. We have chat logs, wallet histories, and a list." He paused. "You're on it." I folded into the doorframe like someone had taken my bones out. It wasn't over. Cases like this are never a clean cut, but it was a line in the dark. Over the next days, I learned too much. The swatting call to our address had been built from a script these guys sold to customers, filled in with details scraped from our docs. The voice model had been a toy for them. The CXL token was a gimmick that mapped to a rotating wallet. The service had tiers like a loyalty program at a store. There were screenshots of orders. $10 to send pizzas, $200 for a SWAT. More if you wanted them to frame it as domestic violence, more for follow-up content. The words looked like something a brand manager would write. That was the part that made me want to throw up. When the news broke, local headlines, then national for a day, I found out the 17-year-old lived with his grandmother. He had a desk piled with candy wrappers and a gaming PC that cost more than my car. His school friends said he was quiet and nice and loved his dog. There was a photo of the dog in the story, floppy-eared and smiling, as if to prove the world is not built to keep villains and puppies separate. People asked me if I felt better. I didn't know how to answer. The shaking stopped, mostly. The page went down, the messages stopped. My sister went back to campus and left her location services on so I could watch her move in little blue dots. My parents reinstalled their smoke detectors. Mateo taped the detective's card to the inside of a kitchen cabinet so we could touch it without seeing it. But the story doesn't end with me brave and wiser. It ends with me walking down the coffee aisle after my shift because the smell of dark beans covers the phantom taste of copper in my mouth. With me freezing when a delivery driver rings my doorbell twice instead of once. With me sitting in a restaurant and choosing the table farthest from the front window. It ends with my phone buzzing and my brain building a complete catastrophe from the vibration before I pull it out and see it's just a shipping notification. I changed my handle. I changed my habits. I didn't go offline. That's not a real option for people like us anymore. But I talk to new people using my real voice less. I don't install things I don't need. I keep a copy of the police swatting caution note folded in my wallet, which is ridiculous and also helps me breathe. Sometimes in the quiet, I remember the red dot drifting across my chest like a bored insect, and how relief and nausea hit me at the same time when it moved away. Sometimes I replay the detective's voice telling me not to pay. How rules that seem simple from far away turn into a maze when you're the one inside it with a clock and a family and a choice you don't want. A month after the arrests, a padded envelope showed up at our building with no return address. I carried it like it hissed. Inside was a single sheet of paper, printed in gray ink, no fingerprints visible to my naked eye. Just a QR code and the words that had started it all. CXL token. I brought it to the precinct the same day. The detective looked at the page for a long time and then slid it back to me. We'll log it, but I don't think it's a live link. Sometimes they like to let you know they still could. I wanted to burn it, or frame it. Instead, I folded it in half and stuffed it in the back of a drawer with the takeout menus and old batteries. It felt right there. Ordinary trash with sharp edges. Last week, I pulled into our lot and parked next to Mateo's Honda. He was already on the balcony, waving like we were normal neighbors in a normal life. "We still on for game night?" I said, "Always," and meant it. On my way up the stairs, I passed a kid sitting on the curb scrolling with the hunched angle of the young. He laughed at something on his screen and noticed me noticing him. He grinned. "Sorry," he said, "memes." I nodded and climbed. Held my breath until the door closed behind me, then let it out. The world had kept spinning without us. The coffee tasted like coffee. The game loaded. Somewhere a courtroom would do what it did, and somewhere a new site would open and someone would type a name in a box and feel powerful for a minute. I still hate the sound of the doorbell, but I answer it. Hands visible, voice steady, and I keep living, because that's the one cancellation they never planned for. I used to think the dark web was only a grim marketplace where people bought stolen accounts and fake bills. Ugly, yes, but still a market with prices and rules. I did not believe the other stories, the ones where a crowd of strangers leans into your real life and twists it for fun. I believe them now. It began with something small. I corrected a stranger on a tech forum about phone number security. I offered a calm explanation about why a port-out PIN still mattered. He replied with a joke, and I moved on. 2 days later, a pizza arrived at my apartment, then another. The joke stopped being funny when the delivery driver read my full name and cell number from his screen. I tipped, apologized, and closed the door with a knot in my stomach. That evening, an email with no greeting landed in my inbox. It said only that I was listed and included a link that required the Onion browser. The site loaded slowly. Its logo was a wooden gavel sinking into water, and the name beneath it read Silent Harbor. The front page showed a row of targets, each one presented like a project. There was a pool of donated cryptocurrency, a set of tasks, and a running feed of updates. The labels were cold and simple: dox, harass, disrupt, ruin. My own face stared back from one of the cards. It was not from social media. It was the old headshot my company used on the About page. Beside it sat my first name, the first letter of my last name, my city, and a blurred little map. The description mocked me as a lecture giver about phone fraud and invited the crowd to see how prepared I really was. It said the background research was complete, nuisance efforts had begun, a phone number takeover was gathering funds, and a police trigger was locked for now. The update feed felt like ice water. Someone had scraped my work profile and a code site I used. Someone had posted my mother's maiden name, which they likely pulled from a genealogy page. Another user claimed to have eyes on my kid. For a long minute, I could not breathe until I realized they meant the bicycle I had shown in a neighborhood forum. On the right side of the screen, there were buttons to back a campaign, to report it, or to request removal for a fee. The price was 2 units of Monero. I closed the tab and sat in the quiet kitchen, telling myself I was being dramatic. The next morning, my carrier sent a text that my number transfer request was in progress. I followed the link and canceled it. When I called the carrier, a supervisor explained that someone had phoned a store in another state with my full name, the last 4 digits of my social security number, and my billing address. They had begged a clerk to remove my port-out pin for an emergency. The clerk refused. I added a note to my account that any change had to be in person with identification and no overrides allowed. At lunch, I opened the site again. My campaign had more money in its pool, and the phone takeover task was close to funded. In the chat, people took bets on whether I would fold and pay. A few asked for my child's school. Some discussed scripts for fake hostage calls. I saved screenshots and went to the local police station. The desk sergeant was tired but kind. He knew what swatting was. He took my statement and suggested a note on my address so officers would call back if a crisis call came from my number. I asked if that really helped. He lifted a shoulder. Sometimes. That night, an envelope appeared under my door. My name was written in blue felt tip with careful loops, like a greeting card. Inside was a printout of the auction page with the word "Today" circled, a photo of my building taken at dusk from across the street, a cheap keychain tracker still sealed in plastic, and a short note that invited me to play defense. The tracker was inactive. I slid it into a little Faraday pouch and hid it in a drawer. I taped the note inside a cabinet door where I could not avoid it. Every time I reached for salt, I read it again. For a week, the storm was quiet, and then it was not. Food orders arrived under names I did not recognize. Drivers texted that they were here. 2 men buzzed up and asked if the package was ready. I stopped answering the door. I did my job from the couch and tried to focus on short files and code reviews and not on the sense that the floor of my life had become a thin raft. Near the end of that week, my bank locked my account. The alert claimed there had been a suspicious login from my own device at my own address. On the phone, a bank rep asked if I knew a teller named Melissa. I did not. The rep lowered her voice and said someone had walked in with what looked like my driver's license and asked for a reset through the assisted channel. I added a spoken password and a second one in case the first suddenly could not be remembered. It felt like taping blanket after blanket over windows in a long wind. That night, the site posted a warning from a moderator that said there was to be no real-world harm, that the platform only facilitated pressure. Someone replied with a sneer and said the point was the real world. I tried the removal button, and a page gave me a payment address and a countdown that ran for 1 day. I paced the apartment. If I paid, maybe it would stop. If I paid, I would feed the model. If I refused, maybe it would escalate. In the end, I did not pay. Just after 2 in the morning, my phone rang from a blocked number. A calm voice said he was an officer and that the department had received a report of a hostage situation at my address. I remembered the plan from the station. I said I was the person who had filed the swatting precaution. I said I was alone and unhurt and that I could step outside with my hands visible. There was a short pause and a small exhale. Two cars rolled up to the curb without lights. The officers approached with slow, open hands. We stood in my kitchen while they took notes and I poured water. One of them asked if I had enemies. I told him I corrected a stranger on the internet. He let out a sound that was not quite a laugh. They suggested a camera and a motion light for the hallway and left. The clock on the stove showed the small hours of the morning. I called in sick and wrote a careful memo for my boss, a list of the things I had done and what the company should know. I froze ports and added notes on every account that offered it. I rented a post office box and moved deliveries there. I filed a report with the federal cyber portal and emailed a university clinic that sometimes helped victims. And I kept opening the site against my better judgment, the way you check our weather radar when the sky turns green. The campaign evolved. The banner now advertised teams. My page had more donors. Some users were cruel and bored. A few wrote like professionals with short sentences and tidy plans. A new task appeared called Real Knock. It promised a non-violent confirmation where a runner would knock and take a photo from the hallway. Funds were pledged and a runner assigned. On a Sunday morning, a new message came with a link to a live stream. I didn't click, but the preview was enough. A jittery phone camera panning across the front of my parents' house. The caption, "Free preview. Next tier includes firefighters." I called my father and tried to hold my voice steady while I told him to take the battery out of the smoke detectors nearest the kitchen and keep the oven off. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Okay, son," the way he did when I was little and afraid of thunderstorms. The next day, the detective called again, sounding almost excited. "We got something," he said. "A hosting provider flagged a pattern. We think we've found one of their mirrors. The user slipped up, reused a handle from a gaming server. There's a warrant in motion." I didn't let myself feel it yet. I had learned the tower could always tilt. That night, a car idled on Linden Street for 20 minutes. When I finally stepped onto the balcony with my phone raised, it pulled away slowly enough that I could see a kid in the passenger seat, 16 maybe, holding up his phone to film me. He flicked me a tiny, lazy salute, like this was a prank war. I slept for 2 hours, woke to a thunder of knocks, and went to the door with my hands up before I realized it wasn't tactical pounding, it was ordinary impatient. I opened it to 2 detectives in plain clothes and a third man with a federal badge I'd only ever seen in shows. The Fed did the talking. "We executed a search this morning," he said, "in Ohio. A 17-year-old and a 19-year-old were running part of the site you'd been targeted on. We've identified a third operator overseas. We seized servers. We have chat logs, wallet histories, and a list." He paused. "You're on it." I folded into the doorframe like someone had taken my bones out. It wasn't over. Cases like this are never a clean cut, but it was a line in the dark. Over the next days, I learned too much. The swatting call to our address had been built from a script these guys sold to customers, filled in with details scraped from our docs. The voice model had been a toy for them. The CXL token was a gimmick that mapped to a rotating wallet. The service had tiers like a loyalty program at a store. There were screenshots of orders. $10 to send pizzas, $200 for a SWAT, more if you wanted them to frame it as domestic violence, more for follow-up content. The words looked like something a brand manager would write. That was the part that made me want to throw up. When the news broke, local headlines, then national for a day, I found out the 17-year-old lived with his grandmother. He had a desk piled with candy wrappers and a gaming PC that cost more than my car. His school friends said he was quiet and nice and loved his dog. There was a photo of the dog in the story, floppy-eared and smiling, as if to prove the world is not built to keep villains and puppies separate. People asked me if I felt better. I didn't know how to answer. The shaking stopped, mostly. The page went down, the messages stopped. My sister went back to campus and left her location services on so I could watch her move in little blue dots. My parents reinstalled their smoke detectors. Mateo taped the detective's card to the inside of a kitchen cabinet so we could touch it without seeing it. But the story doesn't end with me brave and wiser. It ends with me walking down the coffee aisle after my shift because the smell of dark beans covers the phantom taste of copper in my mouth. With me freezing when a delivery driver rings my doorbell twice instead of once. with me sitting in a restaurant and choosing the table farthest from the front window. It ends with my phone buzzing and my brain building a complete catastrophe from the vibration before I pull it out and see it's just a shipping notification. I changed my handle. I changed my habits. I didn't go offline. That's not a real option for people like us anymore. But I talk to new people using my real voice less. I don't install things I don't need. I keep a copy of the police swatting caution note folded in my wallet, which is ridiculous and also helps me breathe. Sometimes in the quiet, I remember the red dot drifting across my chest like a bored insect, and how relief and nausea hit me at the same time when it moved away. Sometimes I replay the detective's voice telling me not to pay. How rules that seem simple from far away turn into a maze when you're the one inside it with a clock and a family and a choice you don't want. A month after the arrests, a padded envelope showed up at our building with no return address. I carried it like it hissed. Inside was a single sheet of paper, printed in gray ink, no fingerprints visible to my naked eye. Just a QR code and the words that had started it all: CXL token. I brought it to the precinct the same day. The detective looked at the page for a long time and then slid it back to me. We'll log it, but I don't think it's a live link. Sometimes they like to let you know they still could. I wanted to burn it, or frame it. Instead, I folded it in half and stuffed it in the back of a drawer with the takeout menus and old batteries. It felt right there. Ordinary trash with sharp edges. Last week, I pulled into our lot and parked next to Mateo's Honda. He was already on the balcony, waving like we were normal neighbors in a normal life. "We still on for game night?" I said, "Always," and meant it. On my way up the stairs, I passed a kid sitting on the curb scrolling with the hunched angle of the young. He laughed at something on his screen and noticed me noticing him. He grinned. "Sorry," he said, "memes." I nodded and climbed. Held my breath until the door closed behind me, then let it out. The world had kept spinning without us. The coffee tasted like coffee. The game loaded. Somewhere a courtroom would do what it did, and somewhere a new site would open and someone would type a name in a box and feel powerful for a minute. I still hate the sound of the doorbell, but I answer it. Hands visible, voice steady, and I keep living, because that's the one cancellation they never planned for.
On the 42nd day, the campaign stalled. The pool stopped moving. A moderator wrote that my page would be archived if there was no activity within 3 days. A few bored replies trickled in, and then dried up. The bar faded to gray, and my page slid into a list called Archive. The police trigger reappeared with a little lock icon and a note that reopening would require approval. I waited for another shoe to drop. Nothing came. No knocks, no pizzas, no midnight calls. The quiet did not feel like safety. It felt like someone holding a breath in the next room. 2 weeks later, a final message arrived from the site. It said my page was closed for inactivity and gave me a score for entertainment. It added that 3 users had been banned for proposing violence because that was against the rules there. I said the word rules out loud in my empty kitchen and made a sound that was not a laugh. I moved to a building with a staffed lobby and no buzzer that rings straight into your pocket. I kept the post office box. I kept the freezes and the notes on every account. I keep the folder of screenshots in a drawer beside the Faraday pouch that still holds the dead tracker. Sometimes I look at the first printout, the one where the word "today" is circled. The site is probably still alive somewhere under a new name with a fresh logo. It will keep living in that place where people tell themselves they are only clicks, where harm is called pressure, where extortion is called leverage, where entertainment is called community interest. People ask whether paying would have stopped it faster. Maybe it would have pushed me to the bottom of a feed until someone else said the wrong thing in the wrong place. Maybe it would have taught me and them the worst lesson. The only lesson I keep is the one the sergeant gave me in the dark morning. The crowd wants a clip. Do not give it to them. I still correct strangers online, but less than before. I check that my windows are locked. I choose a gentler tone than I need, and when someone says the dark web is not real, I tell them a version of this story, the one where a room full of thieves told me they had banned 3 users for breaking the rules. Storms have rules too. Your house still floods.
When I woke up that morning, everything pointed to an ordinary day, but it wasn't. It was the day my life would change forever. I had lost my job during the pandemic and was drowning in debt. Our landlord had given a final notice. If I didn't pay the $800 we owed that day, he would throw us out, me and my pregnant girlfriend, Carly. We'd sold everything we could. We were living on vending machine snacks, and even those coins were gone. I went out early to wander the city hunting for anything, day labor, odd jobs, a miracle. After 3 hours, I had nothing. I felt feverish and weak. Carly called, sobbing. "Mark, the landlord, says he'll come around 7 p.m. If we don't have the money, he's kicking us out. Please come home." I had no answer to give. I ducked into a fast food bathroom and drank from the sink, washed my face, and stared at a broken bottle on the floor. For a moment, the despair was so thick I thought about ending everything. I lit my last cigarette. It tasted strange, but beggars can't choose. And then another thought broke through the fog. The dark web. I still had Tor on my phone from high school. I opened it, without knowing what I was looking for until an ad popped up. "Need a hitman? I'm your guy. Jobs from $50. I clicked. A bare-bones form asked for a target and an address. Judge me if you want, but in that moment I believed there was no way to save Carly from the streets if I died. No one but me could protect her. Twisted logic told me a quick, painless death would spare her the humiliation I was about to drag her through. With trembling hands, I entered our address and paid. A banner appeared. Contractor will call momentarily. Once the deal is confirmed and the call is ended, there is no going back. A blocked number rang. The job will be done in 30 minutes. Is she alone? Yes, I whispered. Once you hang up, there's no further contact. Is this final? A long breath. Yes, final. The line clicked dead. It was 6:35 p.m. I dropped the cigarette, picked up a shard of glass, and lifted it to my wrist when my phone rang again. Not Carly, not the hitman. My bank. "Mr. Wilson, congratulations. You've won our monthly drawing. $1,000 will be deposited within hours." The glass fell from my hand. Tears sprang up. "A miracle," I blurted, thanking a God I didn't believe in, until my stomach turned to stone as the reality hit. I had just ordered a murder. I sprinted. Traffic blurred. I tripped, twisted my ankle, and then I heard it. A single gunshot and a woman's scream from my building. A hooded man bolted from my porch and into a waiting truck. It was 7 p.m. The hitman's last words rang in my ears. No going back. I curled on the sidewalk, bawling, until my familiar voice cut through. "Babe, why are you on the ground?" It was Carly. I staggered up, shocked. "You're okay?" She nodded, panicked. "The landlord came, yelling. The doorbell rang. He thought it was you. He opened the door and someone shot him. He fell right there." We called 911. The police took statements and the landlord's body. I said nothing about the contract. Later that night, Carly smiled through tears when I told her about the bank call. We paid the rent, found steadier work, and in time, bought a small place. Our daughter Eva is healthy and loud and perfect. But every time I walk in and see Carly holding our little girl, a cold thorn presses into my chest.
The landlord died because I was a coward for one terrible hour. That secret will go with me to the grave. I wish I could rewind to the moment I clicked that ad. I wish I'd never gone back to the dark web.
Hector and I went to Leon's house because he said he'd found something huge. His parents were welcoming, creative types, paintings everywhere, told us to help ourselves to pizza and not worry about them. In Leon's room, he fired up Tor, pasted a URL, and dropped us into a live red room. The legend I always hoped was just that. A masked man in head-to-toe black was torturing a middle-aged woman tied to a chair. I averted my eyes as he pulled a thick wire around her neck. The chat scrolled by with casual banter, as if nothing were happening. Then a message in the chat froze my blood. Having a good time? Want more pizza? It could have been a coincidence. It was Saturday night. Leon typed back without asking us. We're great. We'll eat later. Hector snapped at him. Leon smiled. Rude not to answer. They made pizza even though they're busy. Who? I asked. My parents, he said. I laughed, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. Hector swore and headed for the door. He opened it and the man in black stood in the hall, the same one from the stream. Excellent, he said. The new volunteers. Leon's parents appeared behind him. We stumbled backward. A sweet chemical hit my nose. Darkness. I woke under red lights, taped to a chair, mouth sealed. Hector was beside me, bound the same. There was a camera, trays of instruments, a decapitated body on a table, the woman from the video. The man in black glided over and scraped the edge of a knife across my throat, not cutting, just letting me feel the cold. Hector sobbed. The cloth with the same sweet smell covered my face. Darkness again. I woke on the street a few houses from mine, dizzy and aching. My mother screamed when she saw the thin cut on my neck. We called the police. They found nothing at Leon's house. No parents, no son, no basement. Investigators later turned up the recording. The audience had voted, kill one, spare one, for now. In the chat, someone proposed a game. Let me live a few years, then hunt me again to finish the show. That year, I dropped out and moved with my parents. I almost never touch a computer. I don't know if Leon's parents were really his parents. I don't know if they're still out there. I only know that some nights I wake convinced I can feel a red light warming my face.
It started as curiosity and slowly became something we couldn't control. My best friend Jack and I were tech-obsessed, always wandering into odd corners of the internet. One day, a user named Watchman contacted us through a forum on the dark web where people exchanged secrets. He claimed he'd been watching us, then attached a folder with our private photos, chats, things we thought were long gone. He knew everything. His deal was simple: complete the tasks he sent, and our lives would stay private. Refuse, and he'd share it all, with our classmates, our families, the world. The first challenge was bizarre but not dangerous. Sprint through a crowded supermarket shouting a conspiracy theory while recording ourselves. We did it. His reply came quickly. Well done. More to come. The tasks escalated. Dress as clowns at a football game. Sneak into an animal shelter at night wearing masks and live stream it. That crossed a line. We hesitated, but then came another reminder of what he held over us. So we went along. After that, the dares turned darker. Things designed to humiliate us, to break us down. We were exhausted, ashamed, but too afraid to stop. Finally, we begged for an end. His last message felt like a trap. Jump from your building at midnight. Do it, and you're free. Jack came over. I told him I was done. that if Watchman wanted to expose me, so be it. I couldn't live under his grip anymore. Jack was silent, torn. For him, it was worse. He was gay, closeted, from a strict family. Much of what Watchman had on him were private messages with someone he loved. At midnight, we streamed from a rooftop, pretending we were ready. I spoke to the camera. We weren't going to jump. If he wanted to reveal our secrets, let him. After a long pause, his reply came. "You're free." For a week, nothing happened. Jack grew distant, stopped coming over. Then one Monday morning, my parents woke me with pale faces. Jack had jumped from the same rooftop. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. A message from Watchman. "Congratulations. You're both free now. Jack was brave enough to finish the task for you. His secrets and yours are safe forever. Goodbye, Adam." I never went to the police. Maybe I should have. But nothing would bring Jack back. People dismiss the dark web as rumors or exaggeration. It's real, and not all monsters use weapons. Some use silence, secrets, and shame.
I'm an introvert with few friends. After school one day, I went straight to my room, binged anime until dark, got bored, and, because classmates had been whispering about it, looked up how to reach the dark web. Tor, a VPN, a handful of directories. At first it was just grotesque forums, cannibal fantasies, grief twisted into morbid galleries. Then I stumbled into a live stream. A man in a plague doctor mask stood over someone tied to a chair. On a side table, tools, blades, a heavy axe. The victim's wrists were shredded and dripping. The masked man asked, voice lowered through a changer, "Should I finish him?" The chat howled for the axe. I stared, frozen as he lifted it and brought it down. The room filled with the wet thud of steel and flesh. I slammed the tab closed, too late to unsee any of it. Instead of closing, the browser redirected me to a grid of videos, a series tracking victims, street photos, sleeping photos, and then the final clip from the room. At the bottom row, a new thumbnail appeared. My face. A still from my laptop camera in the clothes I was wearing. My heart punched my ribs. I clicked. A heartbeat sound pulsed and a pop-up slid across the screen. "We finally see you." My laptop went black. 3 days passed. I kept glancing over my shoulder, telling myself it was a prank. That night, my phone buzzed. A video of me asleep right then in those same clothes. Floorboards creaked to my right. Heavy footsteps sprinted down the hall. I launched out of bed shaking, flicked the lights on. Nobody. I grabbed my phone to dial 911. No signal. I cracked my door and saw a shadow slip toward the living room. Waking my parents might put them in danger, I thought, so I ran for the front door to get help. The moment I cleared the threshold, a hand seized my hair and dragged me down the steps. I screamed and clawed. He kicked me, stomped my head, snarled for me to shut up. A voice bellowed from the street, "Let her go, or I'll shoot!" My neighbor, the one who's a cop, charged into the yard. The man dropped me. 2 more figures appeared. My neighbor was better and faster. He put 2 of them down with leg shots and fatally wounded the one who'd been beating me. I woke up in a hospital with fractured ribs, internal injuries, and a skull fracture the doctors called a miracle I survived. The 3 men were just a tiny link in a bigger chain, an organized group tied to the dark web that still hasn't been fully dismantled. We moved to another state. We're under police protection. I'm healing, mostly, but until they catch the rest of them, I don't think I'll ever sleep like I used to. I'm alive and whole, and I'm grateful for that. Some nights, though, when the room is very quiet, I swear I can hear a faint, mechanical heartbeat, and I close my laptop.
I'll admit it from the start. I'd heard plenty of deep web, dark web stories, and always thought they were nonsense. But a close friend swore she'd been there and seen things so disturbing she refused to describe some of them, said they would haunt her for the rest of her life. I should have let it go. Instead, I wanted to prove to myself she was making it all up, that such a place didn't exist. I was wrong. You know how this goes. I downloaded Tor and went in. I found the hidden wiki. I'd been warned that some links could take you to truly awful places. I clicked a few. They were mostly escort listings, drug deals, shady but boring. I was starting to think I'd been right, that the deep web was just an easy way to make untraceable deals. Then I found a link called Night Watch. The page was flat black with 3 enlarged videos placed side by side to fill the screen. They were paused, each showing a still photo of different people. The first showed a family of 4, mom, dad, 2 little girls. The second showed a couple, the woman clearly pregnant. The third showed a single woman with her dog, a cute black Labrador with a white streak over its left eye. Before I could study them, a voice rolled out, male, but slightly distorted so I couldn't really place it. This is what it said. Good evening. Tonight, the Night Watchers bring you 3 unique homes. Each family lives differently, believes differently, and has different plans for the future. He paused, cleared his throat, and when he continued, it sounded like he was smiling. Observe each video and then choose one. I didn't understand the point, but my curiosity was hooked. I clicked the first video. It jumped through a family's evening, watching TV, playing in the backyard, dinner, the parents tucking in the kids, then heading to their own bed to make love. It cut there, thank God. I felt like a creep watching private moments meant only for them. Reluctantly, I clicked the second video and was shown a young couple preparing to start a family. It jumped between them, standing in the baby's room, hugging, looking excited, eating salads at the kitchen table, checking the mail, flipping through baby books and magazines, watching a show on TV, and then going to bed and cuddling. It was sweet. I couldn't help smiling, but it still felt like spying on their personal lives. I moved on to the third, figuring I should watch them all. A single woman lived alone with her dog. Her place was messier, piled dishes, clothes draped over a couch, an overflowing trash bin. She watched a lot of TV, ate straight from a half-gallon of ice cream, checked her phone every few minutes like she was hoping for a call or a text, played with her dog, fed him, and finally went to bed with the phone in hand. She began to touch herself, and I grew incredibly uncomfortable. Thankfully, that cut off too. The screen returned to the 3 paused stills. The voice came back. Now that you've watched, which will you choose? I stared, praying someone else out there was watching and would choose for me. Nothing happened. After a couple of minutes, those 3 videos vanished and were replaced by 3 new ones, live feeds that turned my stomach. 3 tall figures, men, I guessed, wore identical outfits. Black shirt, black pants, boots, and a long black coat swaying around their ankles. Each wore a black, wide-brimmed hat. Have you decided which you will choose? The voice asked over the live feeds. Death comes on swift wings for our condemned friends. You must choose one. That is how the game is played. He thought this was a game. I was horrified. Was I really supposed to pick who died and who lived? Ridiculous. I moved to close the page. Before I could, he purred. Before you leave us, know this. If you do not choose one of the 3 shown here, your family will be next. I flinched at the threat and told myself he was just trying to scare me, and it was working. Then he said softly, Anna. My heart lurched. He'd said my name. Now I was officially terrified. I only wanted this to stop. Anna, sweet Anna, I know it's a hard choice, but it must be made. Please direct the Night Watcher to his task. The original 3 videos popped back up. I understood. I had to choose who would die. Maybe it was a cruel prank, a hacker and his friends messing with unsuspecting deep web users. I said it out loud just to steady myself, but my heart was still hack-jammering. I looked again. A family with kids, I couldn't pick them. The couple expecting a baby, no, I couldn't. Choose, the voice snapped, suddenly harsh. I jumped and looked at the last one, the lonely woman with only her dog. She seemed to have less to lose, no husband, no children. It wasn't right, but I clicked her video. Very well, the voice said, calm and smooth again. The 3 watcher videos reappeared. Night Watchers, a decision has been made. You may carry out your task. Horrified, I watched 2 of the watchers approach the homes in front of them, while the third turned away from his and vanished into the night. I was confused. I had chosen the single woman, but her watcher walked off. The feed for her home cut out. The other 2 videos enlarged to fill the screen. "What's happening?" was all I could whisper.
The 2 remaining watchers entered their houses with almost no effort. I bit my lower lip hard enough to draw blood. The streams followed them silently as they moved through the homes. One watcher paused in a fully prepared nursery, looked around, then headed for the other bedroom. The second watcher crept down a hallway, seemed to decide between doors, then chose the children's room. I glanced back at the first feed. The watcher stood at the sleeping couple's bed, a machete in his hand. He stepped to the side and began swinging wildly. The screams were so loud and terrified I thought I might faint or vomit. I forced myself to look at the other video. The watcher stood in the kids' room between the little pink bunk beds, also lifting a machete. I screamed, lunged for the wall, and yanked the computer's plug. I was shaking, dry-mouthed, dizzy, sure my heart would explode. What had I seen? What had I done? Hours later, I powered the computer back on, praying it had all vanished. Days passed. Then I saw an email from Night Watcher. I opened it for reasons I still can't explain. Maybe I hoped it would tell me I had been duped. Instead, on a blank white background were a few large words. Jenna thanks you for sparing her from a Night Watcher's fate. We thank you for your choices and truly enjoyed our time with you. Play again whenever you like. Attached was a photo of the single woman walking her dog in a park, eyes down on her phone. I will never...
I've never had great self-esteem. My girlfriend Michelle is stunning, tall, green eyes, dark hair that turns heads. I'm shorter, no six-pack, and a hotel receptionist on the edge of town. Lately, she'd been glued to her phone, laughing at messages from friends. I tried not to spiral, but the doubt festered. One night, her phone buzzed while she slept. I got up to check it, then froze when she murmured, "What are you doing, honey?" I lied about bringing water and backed off, heart pounding. In a panic, I turned to my computer. I searched for ways to catch a cheating girlfriend, useless trinkets. Finally, in a moment of ugly desperation, I went back to the deep web for the first time in years. I found a tiny clip-on camera, video and audio. The price was absurdly low. I ordered it and felt like a creep. The next day, I found a note from Michelle saying she'd be late. As I poured water in the kitchen, my knees went weak and the world faded. I woke on the couch, disoriented. Michelle was gone. A text awaited with a link I didn't open. Another message, "Don't let them hurt you." Then a live video feed of my living room. I tried to respond. There was no way to reach the sender. "Don't bother," a new text read. "You can't contact me. You can talk. I will listen. There's a camera. Cheap but impressive tech. If you don't want your life ruined, you'll pay. And don't blink when you enter your password. I see everything." I went cold. Michelle came home tipsy and I pushed her away. The following days were chaos. I couldn't focus at work. The messages escalated, always watching, always listening. One night I drove to a bridge and leaned over the rail, ready to end it. My phone rang. Unknown number. "I'm Mason," a calm voice said. "I'm glad you're still alive." He claimed we were in the same boat. "If you have a camera implanted, you probably ordered the thing that led to this. I hacked a database to find you. I called over 20 people today. You're the only one who picked up." My stomach lurched. Mason had a plan to trace the blackmailer. "He needs my banking credentials. That's where I can plan to track her." I hated it, but I wanted my life back. "Okay," I said. We went live with the bait. Minutes later, the blackmailer texted, "Don't bother calling the bank. Your money is as good as mine." I nearly broke. Then Mason called. "I'm 30 minutes away. When you come out, keep one eye closed and cover the implanted one. I've got an iPad. We'll type." He arrived. He looked ordinary, not dangerous, except for the 2 guns in the back seat. "One's for you," he typed. "Stay focused." We drove to a house. Inside, a voice boomed from a bedroom speaker. A figure darted past a window. We rushed in and grabbed a teenager. He sobbed that a doctor, his cousin, was behind the implants, using them for surveillance and blackmail. We drove to the doctor's place. Mason moved like a man who'd done this before. The surgery was quick. Soon we were back at my home. The camera's gone, my head finally quiet. But Michelle was gone too. A man called. "She's at a party. Sounds like it's over between you two." Upstairs, I found her note. "I'm tired of feeling like you don't care. I'm moving in with Anna until I find a place. This is the end. Michelle." I escaped the camera, but lost something far more precious. Now I have to rebuild from scratch.
My name is Lucas, and I study computer science. If you met me last year, you would have seen the usual things. A chipped mug next to a laptop, too many tabs open, and a folder tree only I could navigate. By day, I helped in the university lab with jammed printers and locked accounts. By night, I wrote half-finished projects and swore I would clean my desk tomorrow. The week it all changed started like any other. A classmate, Bruno, added me to a so-called security chat. It looked harmless at first, a stream of memes and capture-the-flag tips mixed with bragging. Buried in the scroll was a post from someone calling himself Rooted. He offered remote work, payment in stablecoins, data labeling, and site testing. The requirements sounded like a take-home exam from my operating systems course. I messaged him. Rooted replied with polite copy-and-paste sentences. He said it was an academic project for a private content moderation lab. He would send a container and a simple verification script. If it ran, I would get a small advance. It did not sound shady, or maybe I did not want it to. The first warning sign was the contract. It was short, clumsy, and had no letterhead. The second was his insistence that I run his verification on my personal machine rather than in the sandbox. I pushed back and set up a local virtual machine. I told myself I would wipe it later. That promise to myself was the third warning sign. The container spun up, printed a string of cryptic logs, and ended with a cheerful OK. A notification hit my wallet soon after. It felt legitimate enough to quiet the little voice in my head. The first task looked almost noble, labeling toxic comments so a filter could learn to catch them. The texts were ugly, but believable.
I finished the batch and got paid again. I began to think maybe I had lucked into honest work. Then Paula, the systems admin at the lab, stopped by my desk. "Lucas, your account showed a couple of odd connections late last night from our floor. Were you here?" I shook my head. At that hour, I was home. Paula frowned, made a note, and left. I checked my virtual machine. It was shut down. I checked my router, saw nothing strange, and moved on. I did not see what I should have seen. A few days later, Rooted changed the plan. He wanted me to audit the accessibility of a few portals from my region. He sent a small program that would record site performance. I asked to review the code. He said it was proprietary. I said I would run it without elevated permissions. He agreed, but asked me to keep a browser session open to measure real flows. That phrase should have stopped me. I let it slide. That night, while the program measured, I tried to study. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my browser flicker, like someone was typing and deleting inside a form. I blamed a clumsy extension and kept reading. In the morning, my university email was locked for suspicious activity. Someone had tried to push to one of my repositories from a foreign address. My crypto exchange flagged a login from an unknown device blocked by two-factor. For a few minutes, my phone line went dead. At the time, I thought it was a random outage. It was the first twitch of a failed swap of my number. I wrote to Rooted. Silence. I wrote to Bruno. He said he had already left the group because it was full of bluster. I laughed because I wanted to cry. I went to see Paula and told her everything. She did not scold me. She told me to bring my laptop to the university's incident response room and not to turn anything on until then. In the lab, Clara from the response team hooked my drive to a clean workstation. The story unfolded without drama, which somehow made it worse. The container that ran my first test had planted a quiet service that waited for me to open a browser inside the virtual machine. It watched for session tokens and shipped them out, bundled and encrypted, to a relay. From there, someone tried logins, password changes, and lateral movement. It was not movie-style ransomware. It was careful and patient. Whoever this is tried to get into your email, your code, your exchange. Two-factor saved you more than once, but they were watching. The money is not the real prize. Your access is. She taught me a phrase I wish I did not know. Access brokers. They don't always steal funds. They steal entrances. They study which accounts have useful roles, which doors they open, which routines they follow. Then they sell the set with a sort of warranty. If the buyer needs it, the seller will test and refresh the access after password resets to prove it still works. "What now?" I asked. "Containment," she said. "Change credentials off your usual devices, rotate two-factor to a physical key, tell your mobile carrier to block duplicates of your line, and notify every place that might be exposed." I went home with my stomach in knots. I replaced my phone card at the carrier store and set a code. I bought a hardware key and made it my primary method. I asked the exchange to freeze withdrawals for a couple of days. I changed passwords from a live system booted fresh. None of it made me feel safe. It made me feel less naked. That evening, a message landed from a new alias.
that didn't mention rooted, but knew too much. Good work today, Lucas. You catch on fast. Now return the favor. Take the lab car to a hotel, pick up a package at the desk, and put it in a locker at the mall. After that, we erase your traces everywhere. If you refuse, we tell your university you were the one who ran the crawler on their network. The words pinned me to the chair. The crawler was theirs, not mine, yet I had run their container, and that was enough to smear me. I stared at the message, then walked back to Paula's office. Clara read it and exhaled slowly. Classic coercion. You're not doing anything for them. We preserve everything and call people whose job it is to handle this. By nightfall, the university's legal counsel and a detective from the cybercrime unit were in the room. They didn't promise movie endings. They told me the plan was to keep me physically safe, cut the attackers off from every foothold they had, and document everything. If we answered at all, the reply would be neutral and vetted. If we moved anything in the physical world, it would be law enforcement, not me. The detective dictated a short message from my account. I could not leave campus vehicles, and any allegation against me would be met with full cooperation from the university. Then we went quiet. The team set up alerts on my accounts and my phone line. I stayed in a guest room at a staff dorm with a security camera by the door and slept in the kind of shallow way you do when you've been running for too long. At dawn, a new message arrived. It was a picture of my apartment building from the street. No one knocked. It rattled me even more when Clara showed me that the exact shot exists on a map service. They hadn't come by. They had screeped. That was supposed to calm me. It barely did. The next days were tedious and frightening in equal parts. We rebuilt my laptop from scratch. We rotated every password and token, even the ones I'd forgotten I had. We notified the exchange, my email provider, my code host, the lab, and a handful of professors whose class resources I could touch. The response team set up honey tokens that would alert us if someone tried the old paths again. The detective explained gently that cases like this take time, if they move at all. The best outcome was that the pressure would stop because I was no longer an easy target, and because the risks had gone up for them. On the third evening, a last message arrived. It said only this: "You were more trouble than you were worth." Then it went quiet.
The messages did not stop. They came to the old number until the phone died. Then one came to the new phone, by name, with that empty smiley. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I went back to the precinct. The same officer read the message and then looked at my face like a doctor deciding whether to admit a patient. She said we could try it. One delivery, in daylight, to a place they chose, with me staying in the car, with other people nearby that I would not see. If nothing happened, we would file it under attempted coercion with digital means, which is a long name for leave him alone. It did not happen. The order never came. The number did not call. The rain came back and made a curtain between weeks. Once, passing the gates on my way to a new job at a cafe on the other side of town, I saw the drone again, or one like it, tilting lazily over the guardhouse as if bored by weather. I do not deliver pizzas anymore. I miss the hum of the scooter sometimes, the way the city rearranges itself at night into routes and landmarks that only drivers know. I keep the box bag folded in the back of the closet like a retired jersey. When I tell this story to people who ask about the worst house I ever delivered to, I leave out the part about the link on the tip page, the way my full name looked on that tablet, the faint pencil rectangle on the counter where a box should go.
I am not sure which part would make them believe me more. What I do say is this. Not every horror needs a dungeon. Sometimes it rents a modern kitchen with lemon cleaner and a glass wall that shows you not quite enough. Sometimes it smiles with good tips and perfect instructions. Sometimes it learns your name and decides that is a key. I did not expose a network. I did not open a box and find something the news could film. I did not become a hero in a thread where people thank strangers for doing brave things. I did a small thing that mattered, which was to stop before I became a door. I told someone whose job it is to keep gores from being used like that. It does not make a clean ending. It does make a kind of peace. On some nights, I still turn off the lights in my studio and look out at the street and think about the guard and the gate and the drone that watched me arrive. I wonder if someone else rides that route now, if the pencil marks on the counters have been wiped away, or if a new kitchen has them already in place. I wonder how long a smile can be empty and still look like a tip. If you want a lesson, it is not complicated. Curiosity feeds you on slow nights, but it will not protect you when someone decides you are useful. Pay attention to stop signs that do not look like signs. When something praises your carefulness, in the same breath it asks you to do a favor. Hear the part you want to ignore. And if a door in a nice house stands open to a blank room with a clean counter and a humming refrigerator and a screen that knows your full name, remember that clean is not the same as safe. I keep a paper map now. It folds badly and tears at the corners, but it is mine. I like the sound it makes when it opens, like a small tent in the rain. It tells me where I am without telling anyone else. I take the long way around the gated streets. I buy my own peppers and add them at home. And when my phone lights up with a number that does not look like a number, I let it ring and ring until it gives up and goes back to being just a rectangle of glass in a quiet room.
People warned me about online dangers. I thought I was above them. I saw an ad. Easy money, just prove you're healthy. It asked for a photo and a medical questionnaire. Blood type, past surgeries, allergies, conditions. I filled it out with a cold sweat on my forehead, chasing the thrill of something forbidden. Hours later, the email arrived. Your form has been accepted. Funds will be credited to your wallet. Relief and dread hit me at once. Weeks later, I went out drinking with friends. The night blurred. I woke up in a hospital with a burning pain in my side. The doctor didn't sugarcoat it. I was missing a kidney. My shirt, once blue, was blood-stained. My arms were bruised, needle marks dotting my veins. The horror swallowed me whole. With my friends, I began to investigate. We found stories like mine. People chewed up by a system that buys and sells bodies as merchandise. That's when I learned about Valyria. She'd seen a generous blood donation offer from a clinic that looked legitimate. Soft colors, friendly staff, smooth explanations about a study. At first, everything felt normal. On a later visit, she felt dizzy, passed out, and woke tied to a bed in a cold, dark room. They'd taken huge amounts of her blood because her type was considered special, valuable on the black market. She escaped during a staff lapse, but the trauma still hunts her in her sleep. The more we dug, the more threads we uncovered. Referrals that paid small bounties, health checks that harvested data and bodies, transport jobs that turned ordinary people into unwitting accomplices. I remembered the tiny payouts I'd once considered harmless, enough for a night out, realizing how easily we're pulled deeper. A text here, a confirmation email there, a needle you don't recall, and then you wake up with a part of your life gone. We organized victims, shared evidence, and pushed authorities. They traced calls and locations, raided sites, and made arrests. Seeing some of those responsible behind bars brought relief. But the scars remain, physical and otherwise.
I'm writing this so it won't happen to you. If someone asks for your health, your blood, your body in exchange for money, it's not an opportunity. It's a trap.